thanks to the City of BRIMBANK across our neighbourhood and the world, Soul Dive with AD, Roshani and Lydia on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM.
Hello everybody and welcome to Soul Dive on BRIMBANK Live's Live FM. I'm your host Roshani and I'm joined by my other hosts AD and Lydia. Ladies, how are we today?
Really good.
Guys.
Really excited.
Doesn't
for,
sound like it, AD.
Sorry.
Really good.
Really good.
Excited for today's show as part of International Women's Day because we are strong women.
That's right. Yeah, I love how you got rid of the independent and the black part.
I'm trying to be intersectional. I'm trying to include everybody. It doesn't have to be just black women. Everybody's strong.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we're going to delve into today. The importance of not just feminism, but intersectional feminism and including women who may not have their voices heard as much. And we have an incredible guest on as well, Krisha Tulsiani, who is a passionate feminist, writer and a very strong advocate for feminism. And we are going to pick her brain in relation to feminism and intersectional feminism and what it means and what we can do to be better allies to women. Before we kind of dive in, I want to kind of ask you both and maybe have a bit of a discussion about what feminism means to us. Lydia, do you want to kick us off?
Sure thing. I have to be honest and say that feminism isn't something that I've paid a lot of attention to when I compare it to, say, other causes or things like that. But in simple terms, I guess for me, it's just it's restoring that balance between, man and woman or all the genders that exist within society and ensuring that, us as women have full rights to things that other people have rights to. And yeah, that's kind of like, that's all I understand of it. Actually, genuinely, I'm here to learn a lot more than I am to kind of like speak today, because it's genuinely a topic I haven't spent a lot of time with. But in simple terms, that's what it is to me. It's just, rights, like having full rights. Yeah,
for sure. And just on what you said, Lydia, I think that sometimes, particularly in the social justice space, it can be very pressuring because there are so many different things going on, so many things to support, that sometimes people can feel like they have to be on every single aspect and every single issue, but sometimes that's not possible. And sometimes, we put a lot of energy into one social justice issue and there are other ones that we acknowledge, but we don't have as much time to put into. So I totally hear what you're saying. You are in so many spaces that fight for such great things and fight for inequality, or fight for equality in light of inequality. So I think that, that's something that definitely I relate to as well, because there's a lot of things out there and there's a lot of, causes to fight for. And we're doing the best that we can. So,
definitely. We only have, a certain amount of time, resources, energy to invest into like fighting or advocating for a cause. So naturally, you just can't give all of your time to everything. But I think the intersectional nature of feminism with other issues is very prominent. So it's going to be in a somewhat easy discussion to have, I guess, because we're in tune with other social justice issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
AD?
And just to piggyback, I think the reason that feminism isn't on top of a lot of people's cause list is because feminism affects people differently. So people of color are quite at the bottom of the benefits of feminism. And so they're like, we've got better things to do, things that we can change. Because, but feminism to me isn't a cause. It's just how you act. It's in your actions every day. And I think all of us show feminism qualities, even if you don't want to call yourself a feminism, by, getting up every day and being in spaces that you might feel uncomfortable in, be that it's, ruled by men or, the CEOs are white people. It's, just kind of fighting against the status quo. We're not just sitting at home cooking for our siblings and making sure everything's good. We're going out there and doing things to be independent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can echo what both of you have just said in relation to what feminism means to me. It's those structural issues. We're talking about like the gender pay gap and how women aren't represented in certain spaces of work, and also talking about advocacy of women's rights, whether that's their reproductive health, whether that's fighting against the status quo of what women are seen to be or perceived to aspire to be. So it's all those things for me, and just fighting for equal rights, particularly in a male dominant world and in a patriarchal setting. So that's kind of how I see it. There's like a definition here, which is super, super simple for our listeners. It's feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes. And so we are going to delve into everything that we kind of spoke about. Feminism based on intersections, feminism based on, what the movement means to people who are, women of color or people who are disabled, and understanding how that works for them as well, because there are a lot of movements out there, particularly around feminism, that are focused on white women, and that, as we all said, doesn't speak to all women in the world. So I'm really, really excited to delve into our show today, and talk to our amazing guest, Krisha.
With thanks to the City of Brimbank across our neighbourhood and the world, Soul Dive with AD, Roshani and Lydia on Brimbank Live on Live FM.
Welcome back to Soul Dive on Brimbank Live's Live FM. I'm your host Roshani, and I'm joined by AD and Lydia. And on today's show, we are celebrating International Women's Day, and we're talking all things feminism, particularly intersectional feminism, and understanding what women's rights means to all of us. And we are lucky to be joined by Krisha Tulsiani, who is a feminist and advocate for feminism, a writer. She does all the things. Krisha, welcome to the show.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
No worries. It's amazing to be in your presence and to have this discussion with you. So first of all, we want to start off with a little bit of context. Sure. What is gender inequality and inequity to you and your understanding of it?
Sure. So for me, gender inequality is sort of what we started off with, right? This is the way I understand it in my head and the way I've conceptualized it as I've sort of learnt more during my studies and just in general in life as well. So it started with a lot of inequality. And as we're moving into the 21st century, where there's laws now, there's discrimination laws, we've had the women's marches, we've had all these amazing political advancements, and now we're in the position where everything is focused on equity, right? Everything is focused, all our school systems, not our laws are definitely based on equality, but all our school systems and all our even like pushing women to do different things in careers going forward is all based on the principle of equity now. And I think that's really good, because we're teaching women that they can do what they were taught they couldn't do. And we're also making up for that gap where men have always sort of believed they could do it. And we're sort of giving women that extra leg up to prove that they can do it as well. But I think now, as we go into my generation, I'm lucky enough to believe that I have had the same sort of opportunities. But again, coming from a privileged Australian context, of course, I don't think that would have been the same in India, but coming from a privileged Australian context, I believe genuinely that I have had the same support as my male peers growing up. And I'm, again, in privileged areas. So even the way they treated me was very, very lucky and very much equal, and I never really felt that there was anything different between the two of us academically and socially until I sort of actually started researching and learning about like history and about what's happened in the corporate world. So I think that's just that's the way it's in my head and also how I've understood it. So we've definitely moved from we moved from focusing on equality to now focusing on equity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you talk about the difference between inequality and inequity, because sometimes people use them interchangeably, but there is actually a difference between them. And it's about understanding that there are gaps that particular people face, and then trying to fill those gaps and, see how those gaps can be filled in relation to women, particularly as a gender, and then different types of women based on, ethnicity and race and disability and things like that.
You're totally right. And we have quite progressed over time, in women's rights. We can't deny, we've had the vote, women are allowed to work, they're allowed to own their own property. But how prominent is it right now in the 21st century still?
I think that so the way I've understood it is that right now in the 21st century, it's very much that we used to sort of have this inequality, and now we're focusing on having equity, and we're being pushed up as women. And I think that now the opportunities aren't where we have inequity or inequality. It's now the actual perceptions of careers and roles where the inequity still stands. So I might not go into a career because I think it's a male-dominated career, and because I think it's not compatible with motherhood, and I think it's not compatible with all the goals that I want to achieve as a woman. But I've never necessarily been pushed down actually academically or in my school system growing up. It's just that at the higher level, there's not as many women in these careers. And so because I'm not seeing these role models, I'm not necessarily as inclined to move into these higher areas, even though I could do it, and I have been told that I could do it. So I think now, like institutionally, it's very much so equal, especially in Australia and in the context where I am. But I think just socially, it's not necessarily equal as of yet.
Yeah, and it's more psychological warfare as opposed to legal warfare. Exactly.
And it's still related to the institution, because there's systematic things that are in place that cause people to feel, that cause people to not feel like they can go for these jobs, or that they want to go for these roles. But I guess, obviously feminism as a whole intersects with many other issues in society. Can you tell us what is intersectional feminism? Probably Roshani.
So to me, when I think of feminism and I think of the movement of feminism, I always think of the faces that most people will link that movement to. And a lot of work has been done, particularly in the Black and Indigenous spaces, fighting for feminism and fighting for those rights for women. But a lot of the time it's represented by white women. And that is an issue because white women don't reflect all of the experiences that other women from BIPOC communities face and feel. And so when we look at feminism intersectionally, we're not just looking at the typical white woman, but we're also acknowledging that feminism has its intersex, whether that's people from women from Indigenous backgrounds, from Black communities, people of color. So it's really understanding and acknowledging that we need to not only see women for being women, but also how their intersections kind of come into play when it comes to that. Because, when we look at the gender pay gap, we don't just see men and women, but we see race and gender and how that comes into play and how that impacts women differently. And so I think that it's really important when we're focusing on feminism to look at things from an intersectional point of view, to really firstly understand how women are all impacted differently based on their race and ethnicity, and then also moving together for that movement rather than having one particular woman represent what that is to all of us as a group.
Exactly, yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because it's, when we're talking about your gender, that's just you as a person, but then there's so many other things that that might subject you to disadvantages in society. And we're talking about your actual race or your class or things like that. So it makes sense that feminism would intersect with so many other things. But yeah,
I think I'm really lucky to have learnt it from this perspective, because when I was reading exactly about this concept, there's a lot of people that have said, a lot of women that have said that they didn't ascribe to the fight of feminism. They didn't want to be a part of the fight of feminism because they didn't think it reflected their own culture's views. Sorry, not views, but challenges and struggles. So I think by looking at it and seeing our privilege or our the discrimination based on our class, gender is the main. Obviously, we're talking about feminism, but class and race, even sexual orientation, all these things play into it. And by understanding sort of how we fit into the world based on that framework that has been already ascribed to us when we were pretty much born, how we fit into the world, and therefore how we can make feminism into our fight and not just a blanket fight, if that makes sense.
I find intersectional feminism really interesting, but it's not a new concept. There's just now a name to it.
I think it was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in, I think, 1989, maybe, intersectionality, around that time.
And to put it quite easily, a beautiful white woman next to, say, a transgender white woman, we know who's going to get more opportunities.
Exactly.
You know, someone who's disabled, a woman who's disabled against an able-bodied woman, we know who's going to get more opportunities. So there's so many little facets of society that we have to look at, as
and
opposed
even
to
money, of course, because even like me being from a privileged family in India, I moved to Australia when I was 2, but still knowing that had I been in India in the circumstance that I was in, I would still be allowed to have an education, and I would still be allowed to, in my generation, go into the start of a career, if not progress very far in that career, but at least it would be something that I was able to do, whereas a lot still the caste system, is still prevalent there, and knowing that women from lower castes, who typically are of lower socioeconomic status as well, wouldn't have the same opportunities as me, even though we are the same race and the same gender. And it's learning sort of that, and then also then figuring out how you can fight against that. And what was really interesting for me was when I was younger, I was always interested in feminism, but I never thought that it was a fight that I could take, because I thought that everything that could have been done was done, if that makes sense, when I was younger, until I obviously started reading and researching and learning. But initially, it really does seem like where I was from, that everything was equal. And I was like, well, I have no fight to fight because everything's been done for me, and I'm so privileged to have everything done for me. And I'm so privileged to be standing where I am, but it's still where I can walk higher and then make the ground easier for the next person, right? So it's just about sort of learning where the inequalities still are, and then how you can use your privilege.
Because I was going to say, it almost seems like it makes sense to kind of work backwards when it comes to like feminism. It's like identify the issues, the social justice issues not related to the person's gender. So for example, race, and then now meet them at that level and see how that's affecting them as a woman. You know what I mean? Because then you can actually speak to the unique feminism experience of that person, rather than that blanket approach that doesn't work.
Absolutely. And I think that what you were saying was really important, Krisha. You know, we kind of grow up in a society where people do tell us that we have equal rights. And although a lot of advancements have been made, there are a lot of things to fix as well. So it's about celebrating the things that we do have and acknowledging the advancements that have occurred, but also then doing the work to make it better for the next generation of women coming through. So I think that that is super, super important as well. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Soul Dive on BRIMBANK Live's Live FM with Roshani, AD and Lydia. And we are here talking all things feminism with Krisha Tulsiani. So Krisha, in terms of the work that we can do in day-to-day life, what can we do as people of society to be better feminists and better allies?
Okay, well, the thing is that, again, it depends where you are and it depends what fight you're fighting. But where I am, and with the fight that I'm fighting, which is just trying to lift women up in the corporate world, I think mainly because in our social and personal lives, we are, in my opinion, treated fairly equally, apart from, of course, going out at night and, you know, all the safety side of things, which I don't think is ever really gonna equal itself out for a very, very long time. But if we ignore that area for the moment, in the corporate world is mainly where I'm interested in, and learning about why women are published less in academic journals, why women are not making it up to the senior positions in their careers. And this is what's really interesting for me. I was studying the amount of women in economic academia, publishing economic academia. And what I found out was that the pay gap that we have been told, we always get told, you know, women get 82 cents to the dollar, right? And the thing is that we're always reinforced this, but we can't see it in everyday life, because we're saying that woman is in the same position as that man and she is getting paid the same, right? Like, she is getting paid the same. And it's illegal if she's not, right? And if she's not hired over the man, it's illegal. Like, I could go up to the ombudsman and be like, the Fair Work Ombudsman, and be like, you are treating me unequally, and I will get compensated for that, right? So it's not that that's causing the gap. It's actually, first of all, how many women ask for pay raises? How many women go for a job they think they're qualified for? They go for a job if they think they're qualified for 100% of the traits, whereas men will go, I think, with about 60% or something close to that number. And then also the main thing is that they're not necessarily making it up to the senior positions. And the reason why they're not making it up to the senior positions is not because they're not capable. They're definitely capable. It's because it seems like a man's game. So they don't necessarily try, because they say, I don't want to be in that position because that man looks like he's working 60 hours a week and I want to be with my family and I have all these other goals, and that's not a position I want to be in. If you do want to be in that position, often a lot of women in these high positions are seen as, even in movies, especially in movies, they're characterized as this sort of, they don't have anything else in their life. They're very corporate focused. They can't be compassionate and loving, but also be in this position. They have to be very, very ruthless to get to cut off the men around them and that sort of thing. And that's the perception that we're shown. So obviously, as a girl, I'm going to go, I don't want to end up like that. Why would I want to be in this kind of position, right? And the other really interesting thing to note is that often, and I spoke to an academic in UNSW about this. She's studying economics, and what she told me is a lot of women don't make it to senior positions because they're working in their corporate life. They finish uni and then they work in their corporate life for about 10 years, that get to about 35, and then they realize, I want to have a family, which is absolutely their choice. And we, in feminism, we support women to do whatever they want to do, right? So it's not about saying, to be a feminist, you should be corporate. It's not that. It's, if you want to have a family, great, we're going to support you because we're all feminists here, right? But what they're saying is that women get to about this 35, 40 age, realize they haven't had children and want to have children. And then, of course, because they've gone from entirely corporate focused to now entirely personal focused, they're going to quit, or they're going to reduce their hours, or they're going to take maternity leave and not necessarily come back for a long time, which is, again, absolutely their choice and absolutely fine. But what happens is they don't make it to those positions when they're just on the cusp. And then we look at those statistics and we say, the men are earning more, why are the women not earning that much? And it's just because they haven't made it to the positions where they could be earning that much. And it's because they're not asking for it, or they don't want to be there, or because they see it as this man's game or this boys club, and they don't feel like they're welcome there as women, and especially as women who want to have children. But again, it's absolutely not a criticism to them. It's what they want to do. But it's just that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, that's the reality of the situation. And it comes back to AD's point earlier where she said psychological warfare, because as you started to talk about that, all I thought about was confidence, like this lack of confidence, like a lack of confidence in believing that they should be there, you know, or that they're worthy. And even just the reintegration, like after having a child, like, you know, is it that you come back to work and you're still regarded in the same position as you were just before you left, or have you suddenly dropped down a few, you know, points in the hierarchy and now you have to work yourself up again? Like, I think it's really interesting, and I haven't thought about some of these things. So like, thank you for enlightening us. Yeah.
But I think part of feminism as well is realizing that equality doesn't mean equal in every way. Like as women, who knocks them up? It's the men, and then they go back to work. So we need to start recognizing from the top, the highest part of the hierarchy, that these things happen and that we should hold spaces for women who choose to do that and have the ability to come back and keep going from where they left off.
Yeah, and I
And
definitely
not be
think,
distrusted from so early on, so as to not give them those opportunities.
Exactly.
And I think that what you were saying, AD, in terms of what organization you're in, is really, that speaks volumes as to what opportunities you have when you do come back from maternity leave, say, you know, because there are some jobs that will demote women, or, you know, because they haven't been continuing their practice for an X amount of time, won't give them as many opportunities when they do come back, or won't be as lenient or compassionate or understanding when women do need to take time off. And so I think that that's, you know, it's funny because we do hear about these things, and these things seem so far away in the distance. I know for me, when I hear about the gender pay gap and things like that, I remember thinking, okay, well, surely, you know, it exists, but I don't think I'll ever face it. But I remember it was only like 2 years ago, I went for a particular job that one of my male friends was working in. And it's also about talking about things as well, because I got my contract with how much I was going to get paid. And I just thought, great, this is what I'm getting paid. This is great. And he had asked me, like, what does your contract say? Like, what is the number on your contract? And talking about finances and money is not my thing. But I told him anyway, like, how much they were willing to pay me. And he was like, I'm getting triple that. But we have the same qualifications. You know, same qualifications, same experience. So I'm like, whoa. And so, you know, that to me was like, it was like,
that's
whoa, it is crazy. And so I think that sometimes people think that there is a gender pay gap, but I'll never experience those things. But then you get to points where you're like, crap, like this is still happening. And, you know, it is about also speaking to your allies as well. And that's why it's really important to have somebody there, because I remember him saying, well, you know what, we'll go in together and we'll ask for our contracts to be the same. Like, you know, I won't walk away.
That's an ally.
And that's the thing. And it is about finding corporate places or particular organizations that will listen to you and support you, and also finding allies within that space to support you and help you out. Because if I didn't have that conversation with him, I would never have known.
You wouldn't have even been able to reveal the inequality.
So I think a lot of things are happening that you don't even realize, but they're happening. And I think it's important to have those conversations and be aware of those things happening, for sure.
Definitely. And, you know, just to go on to the next question, how can we use our privilege to create positive change towards the movement? Understanding, of course, that we do have privilege, even though in some areas we don't.
I think that it's, again, they go hand in hand, right? Because you sort of need to be the ally to help other women move up on the ladder. And I think it's just about exposing them to opportunities and to all the things they can do. Because again, it's not about telling them what to do, and it's not about telling them that they should be corporate and they should be this and they should be this and that. And I think feminism is very glorified on the internet too, because it seems like you have to be the woman that has it all and has done it all and is going to do it all and everything, right? You have to be kind, smart, killing your grades, killing your work life, killing your family life. And like everyone has off days, right? Everyone has days where like you're sitting in your room and it's all messy and you're tired and everything, right? And it's just like, it's just about showing women that they're not wrong, they haven't messed up if that's something that they've done. It's just about being more transparent and sort of like, I noticed this when I moved as well. It has only been about a month now, but just noticing all the things I didn't know how to do and that I had never been told that I had to do or I could do, or everything, right? And it's just expanded all my opportunities. So it's just by saying yes and doing things, I can just show other women that they can do them too, in my own lane. Like I'm staying and I'm doing what I want to do, but women are seeing that. And it's not like not in like a show off type of way, but just like that you can see, people are seeing what I'm doing and saying, that's cool. Can I help? Can I join? And you just say, yes, come, right? We can never have too many people in this fight.
Absolutely.
You're
get
totally
that.
right,
about,
Krisha.
and everyone has different privilege too. So me pulling up another girl and saying, come help me do this, she's going to have different opinions, different ideas, and different privilege, which is going to just help. Like there's nothing that can, so it's just sort of, I think, about, for both questions, just being yourself, doing what you're doing, but lifting other people up while you do it. Just being the person that is the role model that will show a woman that she can do that in the same role in the future. Or even just encouraging people. Like if a girl comes up to me and says, this is something that I want to pursue, just be like, yes, you can do that. You can absolutely do that. Go, like, kill it, and tell me how it goes. And just supporting the people in your network, and then also outside of your network, you'll support without even realizing it, which is something that I've started to realize, which is really, really cool, because I just thought I'm in my little lane and what I'm doing is not affecting anyone. And what I'm doing is not, I mean, it's important, but it's my own learning. It's my own research. It's not really, like, again, what I was thinking before is that there's nothing really to fight, right? So then now, the more I'm realizing that people are interested in this fight, people want to be part of this fight. Like just you guys reaching out to me made me think that, wow, I'm just this little girl in now studying my degree in first year. Like I have studied stuff, sure, but I'm just living my own little life and I'm trying to do my best. And the fact that you reached out to me and it made me think like, wow, I can really actually make a little bit of a difference, even if it's just a little difference, even if I just impact one woman and make her follow what she wants to do in her life, that's like enough for me.
You've done amazing work so far, and like most of us need to put in the work, no matter how small or big. Like you said earlier, we all have different privileges. So we have to use our voices and whatever platform we can to lift up others. You know, we might be women of color, but you know, women in the LGBTQI community need our voices.
Exactly.
So,
but I also think it's not about speaking for them is the main thing that I've noticed, which is a lot to do with like intersectional feminism, right? Going back to that, initially it was all white women speaking for everyone else, right? And now it's sort of about realizing that, okay, I now have this little bit of a platform, however small my platform is. It's not about me talking about what people in the LGBTQI community should do or should have, or the inequalities in their community. It's not about that. It's about me lifting up people in that community helping them know that their voices are valued and should be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to BRIMBANK Live on Live FM, and we are talking to Krisha Tulsiani, and we're going to delve into all of the amazing things that you have done in your career, Krisha. So you have absolutely been killing it. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your achievements in the form of advocacy?
Sure. So I sort of started off, I think I was probably around 14 or 15 when everything sort of started. I got really interested in obviously the climate issues that were happening. And I was also, this is sort of when school started letting us do our own research papers and things like that. So as I went on, all my research was pretty much focused around feminism, but at the same time I was building up skills doing all this climate work. So I did a course with the School Strike for Climate, and then I helped organise the March 15th strike in Sydney in, I think, 2019 it would have been. And that was an amazing experience because I learned about political power, and I learned about how politics influences the way that we live, and also about how going up to different politicians will give you different answers, and how you need to push different people to sort of pass different things. And it was really, really interesting to learn about, again, the privilege that we hold as young people, but also the privilege that they hold in being people in power. So that's sort of where it all started. And then at the same time, I did a research project on how the career aspirations of women have changed over time, which was like so interesting to learn about how now women are more interested in boys fields, but what was typically, male dominated fields. And now we are moving towards them being more interested in those fields, but why is there still such a disparity? And it was like really interesting to learn about that. And then I was so interested that I continued that sort of for the next year, and I focused on like economics and economic academia, because I want to work in academia when I'm older. And so it was just about like learning about those discrepancies in like the hiring, the publishing, the tenure phases, which was so interesting. And then concurrently, I did a project on how the representations of women are in Bush Noir literature, which was just so random, but it was so interesting. And it was like, I was talking about like the dark feminine and how we think that women who are going through sort of hysteria and depression and all these other things that we think, was initially thought that women should never go through, is actually just like a reclamation of power. So it's really interesting to think about how being bold and being like, even if not like to that extent or to that degree, just living our lives and being unapologetic with what we do and who we are. I mean, of course, if it's not overstepping on anyone else or hurting anyone, then that's what we should do. And that's not just us trying to fit in this like pretty little container. It's us fighting the fight. And that just sort of, it was in a project, and yes, it was in like this narrow scope and niche, but it sort of taught me a lot about just the world and life. So that's sort of where it all started. And then as I moved into uni now, it's really interesting to see how many more opportunities I have to get involved in this stuff, and how many amazing events and things people are putting on. So that's really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're also a part of the Canberra Girls Network. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So being the person I am, I'm like very excited. I'm like very hyper, very excited. And when I found out I was moving to Canberra, which was like quite a while ago, I was like, I want to do something. I want to do something big. And if I go there and if I start looking for jobs, as I'm there and whatever, I'm going to end up like working in Officeworks, which is great, which is fine. I'll have good experience. But I want to do something that will change lives. Like I want to do something that's important. Again, that is important. Gets me my stationery, so changes lives. But you know what I mean? And so I started sort of reaching out to companies in Canberra, female-owned companies, and a lot of them were, again, just like companies, right? Doing social media, doing this, doing that. But this Canberra Girls Network was doing something for a purpose and doing something, it's a not-for-profit. And what they do is they create inclusive events for women in Canberra to network professionally and personally, and to meet mentors and to meet, for me to meet mentors, because everyone's amazingly accomplished in their careers, but even just to make friends and to work together to build a better Canberra, more inclusive Canberra, and a feminist Canberra, right? So it's just like the mission that I was just so taken by. And so I reached out to them and I said, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just finishing high school, but I love what you're doing, and can I be a part of it? Like, can I do something? And so the founder and CEO, Ray Noppick, who's now like a major professional mentor of mine, and I couldn't be lucky to have her in my life, but she is just like she's like such a warm person, and somehow she does everything that she does with so much grace and compassion. And I think that was like I can't believe I found her. She feels like a little big sister in Canberra, and moving didn't feel so scary, like having someone like that. So I'm very lucky, but she's someone that I'm going to look up to for a long time, I think. And so finding her, everything just clicked and worked, and it was just amazing. So now I am their strategy and advocacy intern, strategic communications and advocacy intern. And what I do as that part of that role is I work in social media to help, first of all, get like the word out about events and everything. I'm soon going to be moving on to sort of the policy end of things, where I work with them to create policies for their not-for-profit, but also government policies, stuff that we can go to government and say, can we have funding for these events and that sort of thing. And then also just working with the actual creation of events and partnering with people. And it's just an amazing learning experience. Like I've gotten so much out of it already, and it's amazing, and I'm just really enjoying it.
That's so amazing. Yeah. And I think that those networks are really important for women to connect with other people, to find mentors, as you were saying, and to continue doing the work, because I think sometimes people think individually they can't do much, but as a group and as a community and a network, you can do so much. So I think that being part of those groups is so important. Krisha, can you tell us a little bit about where we can find you on social media for our listeners to connect in with you?
So I am on Instagram at Krisha Tulsiani. Pretty much everything else the same. LinkedIn, you can find me on there. And if you're interested in finding out about what the Canberra Gals Network does, it's at CBR Gals on Instagram as well. So that's what I do. You'll see my face on there occasionally.
Are you sure you want to feature in academia? Because I so see you in politics.
Well, I've studied a very open degree, so I'm doing law, politics, philosophy, economics. So it's a big one.
Keeping your options open.
But it keeps my options open. I can do everything, and I'm really excited about it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing. So passionate, so beautiful.
What are some things we should be looking forward to in the future? Do you have anything coming up that we should know about?
I'm on the YWCA She Leads panel, which was such a cool experience because, in fact, the lady who is the main coordinator of Canberra Gals, who I was just telling you about, she nominated me for this panel. And when she told me, I said, yeah. I thought she was nominating me to go and attend this event. So I was like so excited. I was like, yeah, this sounds great. I would love to. Women in leadership. Yeah, amazing. And then she calls me up and she's like, oh, you're on the panel and they're so excited to have you. And I was like, what? And yeah, you're going to be speaking. And I was like, this is crazy. And so what it is I'm just so excited. I'm like over the moon, but also a little bit terrified, but in a good way. What it is it's speaking to girls in year 11 and 12 about leadership journeys and stuff. So I'm on a panel with, I think, 2 or 3 other amazingly accomplished, like Canberrian women. And I'm very, very excited to have that conversation. So that's coming up March 26th.
Amazing.
And awesome. Apart from that, mostly just now is International Women's Day around the corner. ANU is doing a whole host of amazing panels, events, things that I've just signed up to attend everything. I'm just like, I'll go to everything. So I have one of those today that I'm attending, and there's 3 next week or something crazy like that. So it's just, I'm sort of just learning as much as I can. I'm soaking up the new place and all the new opportunities I have, and I'm trying to just make the most of it.
That's amazing. Awesome. That is incredible. And yeah, we cannot wait to see you in many different spaces in the near future, Krisha. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. It's been amazing having you as part of this conversation, and just having your energy and your spirit has been incredible.
Yeah, so knowledgeable.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so passionate as well.
Thank you. It was lovely to meet you all, and thank you so much for having me again.
With thanks to the City of Brimbank across our neighbourhood and the world, Soul Dive with AD, Roshani and Lydia on Brimbank Live on Live FM.